Is the American dream turning into a nightmare for the middle class? As we find ourselves in the midst of the 21st century, a crisis is looming over the American middle class, a crisis that threatens to shatter the very concept of the American dream. Today we're diving into a topic that is as relevant as it is concerning the middle class rent crisis. Imagine working your 9-to-5 job, trying to provide the best for your family, only to find that the roof over your head is becoming increasingly unaffordable. This is the harsh reality for many middle-class Americans today. The cost of rent is skyrocketing, and with wages stagnating, the middle class is struggling to keep up. In towns and cities across the nation, from the bustling streets of New York to the sunny suburbs of California, the cost of rent is on an upward trajectory. As the gap between income and rent widens, the middle class is being squeezed tighter and tighter. This isn't just about numbers on a page, but about real people, real families, and real lives being affected. And why does this matter? Why should we care about the middle class rent crisis? Well, the middle class is the backbone of our economy. They are the teachers, the nurses, the small business owners. They are the ones who keep our communities running. When they struggle, we all feel the impact. But this crisis doesn't just affect the middle class individuals and families. It's a domino effect that ripples through our economy, our society, and our very way of life. It's a crisis that could change the face of America as we know it. So as we stand on the precipice of change, it's crucial to understand the gravity of this situation. It's not just about the struggle of the individual, but about the future of our nation. So how did we get here? To understand the crisis, we need to go back in time. Let's journey back to the post-World War II era. The American economy was booming, and the dream of owning a home was within reach for many middle-class families. Rentals were primarily for those who couldn't afford to buy just yet, or for those who chose the flexibility of not being tied down. The rent was affordable and tenants' rights were beginning to take shape. As we move into the 60s and 70s, however, things began to shift. Urban renewal projects and suburban sprawl led to a decrease in available housing in city centers. As demand outpaced supply, rent prices started to inch upwards. The 80s and 90s saw another shift. Economic recessions, wage stagnation, and a surge in property prices made homeownership an elusive dream for many. The number of renters surged, and with this increased demand, rent prices began to skyrocket. Fast forward to the new millennium, and the situation has only worsened. The 2008 economic crisis led to a wave of foreclosures, pushing even more people into the rental market. Despite a slow recovery, wages have not kept pace with the rising cost of living, and rent prices have continued to soar. Today, a significant proportion of middle-class families are spending more than 30% of their income on rent, a figure that financial experts agree is unsustainable. Rent, which was once a stepping stone to homeownership, has now become a massive burden for many. It's not just a financial issue, but a social one as well, contributing to a widening wealth gap and a decrease in social mobility. Now that we understand the background, let's delve into today's reality. Fast forward to today, the middle class is feeling the pinch. Let's dive into the heart of the matter, the current state of affairs. Our middle class, the backbone of our nation, is grappling with an escalating rent crisis. The cost of rent has skyrocketed in recent years, outpacing inflation and wage growth. In many American cities, rent prices have risen by more than 50% in the past decade. Consider this. The average American middle-class family spends nearly 1/3 of their income on rent. That's a hefty chunk of their hard-earned money, leaving little room for other necessities, let alone savings or investments. This constant struggle to make ends meet is more than just an inconvenience. It's a threat to their financial stability and future prosperity. Moreover, the data shows that this isn't just a big city issue. Even in smaller towns and rural areas, the middle class is feeling the squeeze. The truth is, no matter where you look, the housing affordability crisis is touching every corner of this country. Let's throw some more numbers your way. A report from the National Low-Income Housing Coalition found that a full-time worker earning the federal minimum wage cannot afford a modest 2-bedroom rental anywhere in the country. Think about that for a moment. And it's not just about the financial strain. The stress and uncertainty of not knowing if you can afford your home next month can take a severe toll on mental health, affecting productivity and overall quality of life. In short, the situation is dire. The middle class, once a symbol of the American dream, is now in the throes of a rent crisis. A crisis that's threatening to erode the very fabric of our society, tearing at our values of hard work, opportunity, and upward mobility. But what do the experts say? We reached out to economists and housing experts to gain some insight. To understand the depth of the middle-class rent crisis, we turn to those who study this field, those who have spent years analyzing data, trends, and the impact of policies. We spoke to economists, housing experts, and urban planners. What they had to say was both enlightening and alarming. Dr. Jane Thompson, a renowned economist, emphasized the gravity of the situation. She pointed out that the cost of housing has outpaced wage growth for decades. This disparity creates a squeeze that's increasingly difficult for middle-class families to bear. Her proposed solution? She advocates for a drastic increase in affordable housing production and stricter rent control policies. Urban planner Mark Harrison had a slightly different take. He believes that the crisis is a result of a lack of diversity in housing options. His solution? Encourage mixed-use development and increase the availability of different types of housing. This, according to him, would cater to a wider range of income levels and reduce the pressure on rental prices. Housing expert Sarah Nguyen, on the other hand, focused on the role of policy. She argued that current housing policies often favor homeowners over renters. This imbalance, she says, needs to be addressed. She suggests a shift in policy focus, promoting renter-friendly laws and the implementation of tax benefits for renters. Each expert offered a unique perspective, shedding light on different facets of the crisis. But there was a common thread: the need for change, for action. Whether it's increasing affordable housing, diversifying housing options, or reevaluating housing policies, these experts agree that the status quo is unsustainable. These insights are invaluable in understanding the complexity of the crisis. They underscore the fact that there's no silver bullet, no one-size-fits-all solution. Instead, it calls for a multifaceted approach, one that addresses the root causes of the crisis. The experts have spoken, but what about those who are living through this crisis? We spoke to some of those affected by this crisis. Imagine being a school teacher in a bustling city, or a nurse working long hours to save lives. You're the backbone of society, yet the very place you call home is slipping through your fingers. As we delve deeper into the middle-class rent crisis, we've reached out to these everyday heroes, and their stories are as heart-wrenching as they are revealing. Take Emily, a single mother of two, working as a paralegal. She told us, "I never thought I'd be struggling to keep a roof over my head. I have a good job, but the rent just keeps increasing. I've had to cut back on so many things. It's been a tough ride." Or consider John, a veteran who served his country with pride, now working as a security guard. His voice trembles as he shares, "I served this nation, but now I can barely afford a decent place to live. The rent is too high and it's getting harder and harder to make ends meet." And then there's Maria, a nurse who works tirelessly in a busy city hospital. She confides, "I spend my days taking care of others, but when I come home, I'm faced with the stress of not knowing if I can afford next month's rent. It's a constant worry." These are just a few voices, but they echo the sentiments of millions more. They are the faces of the middle-class rent crisis hard-working individuals, striving to maintain their dignity amidst a system that seemingly turns a blind eye to their struggle. They are the human side of this crisis, a side that is too often overlooked amidst talks of economics and market trends. Despite these challenging circumstances, they persist, embodying resilience and the indomitable spirit of the middle class. They continue to work, to hope, and to strive for a better future. These stories are a stark reminder of the reality many face. But what can be done? In the face of this crisis, solutions are being proposed and implemented. The rising middle-class rent crisis calls for innovative and practical solutions. It's not just about providing temporary relief to those affected, it's about creating long-term sustainable strategies that can truly transform the rental landscape. On the governmental front, policies are being devised and enacted to address this crisis head-on. These range from rent control laws, which limit the amount a landlord can increase rent, to affordable housing programs that provide subsidies to those who qualify. In some states, laws are being passed to prevent landlords from evicting tenants without just cause, offering a layer of protection for renters. But it's not just the government stepping up. Nonprofit organizations are also playing a crucial role. Many of these organizations are building affordable rental properties, providing financial literacy programs to help people manage their rent and expenses, and offering legal aid to those facing eviction. It's a multi-pronged approach, tackling the problem from all angles. In addition to these, we're also seeing the rise of innovative solutions in the private sector. Tech companies, for example, are creating apps that connect renters with affordable housing options. These platforms not only make it easier for people to find a place to live, but also help landlords fill their properties quickly, creating a win-win situation. Another promising solution lies in rethinking our housing design and construction. Some architects and urban planners are advocating for smaller, more efficient living spaces, often referred to as micro-housing. These spaces are not only more affordable, but also environmentally friendly. It's clear that solutions are not in short supply. But what's crucial is the will to implement them, the political will to prioritize affordable housing, the societal will to rethink our living spaces, and the individual will to be part of the solution rather than the problem. Change is happening, but there is still a long way to go. We must continue to push for these solutions to ensure that everyone has a place they can call home. As we look to the future, questions remain. What will the landscape of rent look like for the American middle class? Several scenarios could unfold, and they range from the optimistic to the pessimistic. Let's start with optimism. In a world where proactive measures are taken, we could see a future where rent prices stabilize and even decrease. Government regulations could be put in place that protect renters, ensuring affordable housing is available for all. Imagine a future where the middle class isn't burdened with rising rent costs, but instead is able to save and invest